we're going to redo this again from the top because I don't think I was streaming for like 5 minutes there. So I've just been talking to dead air because I'm an idiot. And my streams are just constantly a flourishment of errors. Just constant errors over and over again. I do apologise if you were waiting and wondering where the bloody hell I am. I am just going to double check. Sorry, I have to double check that I am indeed live because, again, I don't... There we go. I am good. I am very good. There we go. I'm live. Terribly sorry, guys. It wouldn't be an episode of Live Lifts and Erased if it wasn't plagued by some technical issue there. I just love that. I just love that about live streaming. This is just the greatest platform to do everyone. It's absolutely incredible. As you saw there, my notes from last week, I found them. First up, the biggest news of today. Burt Bacharach passed away, 94 years old. Been doing music for something like 70 years or something, you know, since 19 Diggity, because the Kaiser took our too. And yeah, that's just monumental. The guy has written so much music. First of all, yeah, I've got no green screen. I've finally figured out how to do a little bit of editing on OBS, but sorry, weird segue. Yeah, Burt Bacharach passed away, age 94. Musical legend, absolute icon in the industry. Wrote several pieces of music. I think more people might recognise him, the younger crowd in particular, may recognise him from his guest appearance in Austin Powers, Spy Who, of course, shagged him. And, you know, his little duet piece when I think they were sitting on top of the bus and he's like, everybody, this is Burt Bacharach. What the world needs now. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So, yes, I've done a little bit of editing, as you can tell here, and the green screen's now gone. You can still see the outline, but, yep, no perfection to be done there. And I've also changed up the design of it here and there. So, yay, we've done things. Progress. It's like 1 step forward and 2 steps back, I swear, with this. Everyone, do live streaming. It's fantastic again. Now, I found my notes that I forgot to read out last week during my live stream, and I do apologize for that. The notes are a week old, so apologies that this news is not, I guess, up to date. But hey, it's worth discussing, so let's quickly go over it before we go into the episode's details, of course. So, again, apologies that this news is a week old. I'm trying to do this, but Smashing Pumpkins Act 2, of course, came out last week, 31st of 1st. I have my review out already, so make sure to check that one out. Interesting little album there. John Frusciante also released 2 solo albums named 1 and 2, how very appropriate. Shania Twain released an album as well, Queen of Me, how curious, I suppose. I don't think I'll be covering that. Let's go through the run here. Funerals, Let the Earth Be Silent, Lansdowne, Medicine, Leprous, I can't read that, Aphelion, the tour edition, okay, Memoriam, Rise to Power, what the crap, these metal bands, I swear, Mithridatum, Harrowing, Nervachos, Nerva Chaos, Nerva something, Catonic Wrath, Ruskaya, Turbo Polka Party. Okay. What is a Turbo Polka Party? Is that like a bunch of speed freaks just playing like the poker? I can only imagine. This one is just impossible to pronounce. Sangusius Babog, Homicidal Ecstasy is the album. The Winery Dogs, number 3. Woo, not wow. La Orchestra. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. And Xandria, The Wonders Still Awaiting. Also was in the news. I saw a headline that Prince Harry could win a Grammy next year. That's a interesting one. Well, considering that this is the same awards ceremony that saw Metallica lose to Jethro Tull for the Best Metal Album in 1988, or was it 89, I forget, then anything is bloody possible. So, that doesn't really surprise me. The reason that he could be winning a Grammy is because of his audiobook, The Spare, which was read by him and counts as an award somehow. So go figure on that end. Up on there was also the Aussie Rockers, Private Function, who released a really good album a couple of years ago, actually. And they've got a new album coming out soon. And it's actually been banned in South Australia. And there's a funny reason behind this. So the new album is called 37OHSSV 0773H. And it's due to come out on the 31st of March. Now, if you were to flip that upside down, of course, it would read Hello Asshole, and there's the name of its title. The original release is only 3,000 copies, with a scratchy of 3 icons in each of these. So, yeah, I think you can see where this is going. The winner will meet the band and win $3,000 Australian and have their image on the cover when they reissue the release. So, pretty interesting way to market your product. Now, of course, South Australia has some really interesting laws when it comes to scratch and sniff competitions. Sorry, not scratch and sniff, scratch competitions, scratchy stuff. And it needs a permit in order to be able to release the album. So it would be a temporary permit, of course, but, you know, the band just said, fuck that. We're not going to do that. I mean, this is the state made famous by countless murderers and numerous churches just being flippant about some kind of paperwork. That's very interesting. Alright, the other news we have here, Sam Smith video comes under fire. Sam Smith's latest music video for I'm Not Here to Make Friends is really living up to its name, and it's just pissing off a bunch of people because that's how it is these days. Everyone just gets annoyed about something, don't they? Sam Smith dresses in a corset in the video with nipple pasties and a tiara, and it seems to have kicked off a hornet's nest of internet trolls. Absolutely incredible visuals right there, if I've described it correctly. This will be your usual internet shouting match that will be forgotten in a week, so it's probably forgotten already because I haven't seen it in the news yet, or still, I should say. And I guess it's just like Kanye's wild antics, pretty much just forgotten. So, you know, the Sam Smith thing was pretty big news for a day, and it's been a week, and there's nothing. So, the usual, everyone. Let's get angry about something and then forget about it a week later. I swear the internet's just a giant shouting match at this day. It's, you know what, the video is pretty tame in comparison to others like, I don't know, Madonna or Miley Cyrus with the Wrecking Ball, Duran Duran's Girls on Film, or half the K-pop girl groups, which almost could pass as, I don't know, softcore, word. So the biggest draw is Sam's ability to stay in the limelight, which they've achieved well in doing so. Pop stars in general, you got to stay in the limelight in order to be famous and still selling records, and that's Sam Smith doing his job, essentially. Now, the Darkness were forced to end a live set after just one song. It's not for the reasons you think. Veteran rockers were forced to end the show after one song due to an emergency in the building. Ooh la la. Performing at the M&S Bank Arena. After 20 minutes, they could return to the venue. People were able to return to the venue, after 20 minutes. The cause was it was a very smoky arena, and the band finished their set eventually. I guess it was a one-way ticket to hell and back? No. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time anyway, so interesting. Smashing Pumpkins also confirm an Australian tour in April. Everyone, Smashing Pumpkins obviously have released Act 2, Act 3 will be coming out roughly around that time, so that could be interesting. Now, the April tour, Smashing Pumpkins will be joined by Jane's Addiction and Amyl and the Sniffers. Pretty interesting lineup there. Jane's Addiction would be pretty curious to see live. The shows will be joined also by, this one's tedious, this one's just delicious. The shows will also be joined by some wrestling competitions in featuring Billy Corgan's National Wrestling Alliance and the Wrestling Alliance of Australia. That's just a mouthful. That's a lot of wrestling. Go to see a music... I mean, isn't that just like a metal thing? Oh man, I went to see this metal show and, saw someone get their head caved in. No, that was MMA fighting. Yeah, the mosh pits. No, Billy Corgan, we're going to go see wrestling. Good old wrestling. The shows will be on in April at the usual 3 cities and a few other venues such as Wollongong and Adelaide. So fantastic news for people living in those areas. Unless you want to get, of course, a copy of the Private Function album. Sorry to say, guys. You can see wrestling and Billy Corgan. You just can't get a photo of that. Sorry, you can't get the copy of that album. There was also a debacle regarding Red Hot Chili Peppers' live performance last week in Sydney. Post Malone was the opener act, which I know a lot of people went to see Red Hot Chili Peppers just to get to see Post Malone. I believe he also did a shoey on stage at one stage. So, yeah, there's been a lot of interesting stuff coming out of that little gig. Now, I mean, I went over the set list. I've seen Chili Peppers twice, right? I've seen Chili Peppers during the Stadium Arcadium tour, and I've seen the Chili Peppers during the about 3 albums ago, I think it was. Josh Klinghoffer was still the guitarist, and they also came out with George Clinton and his band. I think pretty much half of Parliament came out. There was like, I kid you not, there were 17 people on the stage at one point. I counted them, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. It's George Clinton. It was a fantastic show, man. I mean, Clinton's just nuts. Absolutely great to see Maggot Brain perform live. Now, I'm reading over here from Setlist FM the set list. And, I mean, you go over it. By the Way had 4 songs. Unlimited Love, 4. That was not the most recent one, but the second one. Return of the Dream Canteen had 3. Blood Sugar Sex Magic 2. Californication 1. Greatest Hits 1 song, and I guess that was Soul to Squeeze. A couple of improvisations. 1 from Mother's Milk, 1 from One Hot Red Minute. It's nothing fantastic. I mean, they didn't play... They played Californication, of course, but, Under the Bridge they did not play. So that's pretty damn disappointing, I guess you could say. But I guess the biggest news of all, of course, is Ozzy Osbourne's announcement that he will no longer tour. And this is very disappointing to hear, of course. We knew that this day was going to come, but still, just kind of gutted. He is gutted as well. I mean, what happened was he had his quad bike injury a couple of years ago, and he just never recovered from it, essentially. Not to the point that he can perform anyway. So I remember I was going to see the Download Festival. I went to the Download Festival in 2019, which was supposed to have Ozzy as the headliner, and that was just around the time that he got injured. And I remember also there was a bit of touch and go. We didn't know if he was really going to live. Or at least some of the reports were saying that. Or at least it came across like that. Now, Slayer took over as the head of the concert, as well as, I think, Ghost. But, at the end of the day, no Ozzy. And I've seen Ozzy perform with Black Sabbath. So I'm pretty damn happy that I got to see Ozzy in that capacity. But to not see him in a solo capacity is it's a bit of a blow, But if I was ever going to see him in any capacity, I was 100% glad it was his Black Sabbath. Now, he is absolutely gutted and disappointed by the turn of events. Basically, that broke his back, I think, the quad bike injury, and he done all this physio for years, but it just hasn't got there in the end. He wasn't able to just get there. It's a bit of a gutting feature that this is it for his career, and now it'll kind of whimper out. And the last album he did, Patient Number 9, which actually he won a Grammy for, ironically. And it was okay. I mean, I liked it. It was interesting. It had Jeff Beck on there. Jeff Beck, of course, passed away a couple of weeks ago. Now, Jeff Beck performed, I think, on 2 or 3 tracks. And I believe Patient Number 9 was no, it wasn't that one. It was the one with Tony Iommi, like that. And it wasn't too bad. I didn't mind it. It wasn't a Flash album, but I've really probably got to go back and listen to it. It's just, I don't know, didn't sit well with me. There's a lot of guest musicians in there. Robert Trujillo played bass for most of it as well. If my memory's right, I think Taylor Hawkins was even the drummer at one stage with them. I think Chad Smith also. I don't know, I swear Chad Smith just does drumming for every band. He does a lot of stuff. Oh dear. But yes, that's the news I got, of course. And now you're here to see me just tear into what we are discussing. And that is the greatest hits. Now, there's a couple of reasons that bands will do greatest hits. It could be due to the label wanting to cash in. Wanting to get that name and recognition that the band has, released a couple of good singles out there and now they're slowed down. Maybe we're going to put a best of out there to keep the hype up there and sell some records or something like that. Maybe it was a slow period between releases or the band had split up. Either way, there is just a lot of bands, of course, who have had best ofs. And you know what, in the world of that, it's a complex issue, you could say. And I mention this because it's their singles. It's their singles that they're renowned for. And you're taking out usually a lot of back catalogue. You don't have to sift through a lot of music. But, I guess it's like pay to play win type of stuff for games. You're just cutting out the crap to get to the good stuff. Some people think it's cheating or whatever you want to say. Some people, you got to go back to the album. You got to go to the album. Well, how do you not like this track? And yeah, look, you're going to miss some things here when you are listening purely to best ofs. But it's also a great way to see if you like this band. You might borrow a best of, and because you knew one or two of the songs or three, whatever songs from this band, and that's another way to check out a lot of their catalogue and see, well, maybe I might buy an album after this or check out this album after that. So what I've chosen here, these are greatest hits purely released in physical form at some stage. I'm not choosing greatest hits that, Spotify threw together on this is insert band here. I'm not choosing those ones because technically it's a compilation of their songs that they wish or that Spotify picks, and there's a plethora usually of that music. This is instead greatest hits that were released by choice of the band or by choice of the record label. You be the judge for that one. And of course usually has all the signature marks of that. It'll have all their all their most well-known, renowned songs that they'll be known for, and usually they'll throw in a B-side or an unreleased demo at the end of the day just to make sure that you're getting your money's worth. Because hey, you're a collector and you've got to have those two songs that you didn't have before. Got to sell those $30 CDs somehow. Now I'm sure this is going to piss off a lot of people what I'm going to say next. But keep in mind, this is an opinion. I'm just a guy who loves music, and this is just my opinion. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just what I think. And, several of these bands that I'll be mentioning, I actually really do enjoy a lot of their albums. But there are a few I don't. So what better way to really launch into this than with the first band. And by the way, there are 10 of these coming up. So the first band that I've got here on my list of greatest hits, better than the rest of their back catalogue, The Police. Yes, Sting and Co. are here with The Police's greatest hits album. And this is the one I'm talking about in particular here. It was a 1992 release. And it's the one where it's that kind of black and white photo of the Police, all three of them lined up. And it's just one CD of the band. I think they released 3 more after this. There's a lot of bloody best ofs, especially for the Police. Now, I love the Police. I do enjoy their albums. But I'll be the first to admit and throw my hands up that they were a very hit and miss band. There was a lot of albums in their back catalogue that if you just weren't really enthralled with their music, you'd be thinking, why am I listening to this shit? You go to, say for example, Ghost in the Machine, one of the most, it had really good songs on there. Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, for example. Demolition Man to a degree. Spirits in the Material World. But then you had some weird shit on there, Too Much Information, Rehumanize Yourself, and just a whole bunch of other stuff that just wasn't, hitting the mark. Outlandos D'Amour, interesting little way to start off the band, but again, you can't stand losing your big songs, So Lonely, Roxanne, but then you got some other weird stuff thrown in the mix, Born in the 50s and other tracks like that. Even when you go to their biggest, most well-known album, Synchronicity, and I mean, these guys are coked off their head at this stage. So when you listen to, the biggest one, every breath you take, for example, but then you throw into the mix, Oh My God or Mother. I mean, Mother is just I don't know. It's like the psychosis of the mind just being recorded. it's a really terrible. Sigmund Freud would have a field day listening to this song and just writing notes about it for weeks on end, I would imagine. It's pure chaos, Synchronicity. And you know what? I probably would love to go back and do a retro review episode on that album, because I love it. I do love Synchronicity. It's got its own charm. But there is a bit of shit on that album as well. So, yes, the first one that I have picked here is The Police. At the end of the day, you have 16 tracks on offer, and really it's mostly the best stuff. You got your course Message in a Bottle, Can't Stand Losing You, Roxanne, Spirits in the Material World. Kind of had to wonder though, the album closer, Tea in the Sahara. I don't know why. I never really liked that track, and I don't know why it was selected when you could have had, say, Demolition Man, which was left off. I don't know. That's just my opinion at the end of the day. So there's a few other tracks, of course, that might be weird. Maybe even Synchronicity 1, but again, that's a different thing. So The Police, that's the first band that I want to pick apart here, saying that their best of is better than their back catalogue. I mean, hell, Sting has done a lot of incredible work post The Police, and yeah, it's quite an interesting mix there. But I will easily admit their best of is probably where you would start. Sorry, it is absolutely hot here today. It's steaming, and I'm just like wearing this hat with lights everywhere above me. I think you can see the sweat on my brow, and just constantly wiping that shit off. Oh, this next one's going to piss some people off. 100% is going to piss some people off here. I am waiting for everyone to smash these keyboards saying you are wrong, because the next one on my list is Queen, the best of greatest hits, and I'm talking about the greatest hits that was released in 1981. Yes, they had a best of way back in the day. This is actually my first taste on the band Queen, so I guess I hold this in high regard for various reasons. I remember getting this CD when I was like 12 or 13, because I started listening to, I think I heard Bohemian Rhapsody, and that song kicks ass. I mean, we're talking Bohemian Rhapsody absolutely blasts. You can't really go past it. And it's just got all the songs you need to hear. It's, 17 tracks in total. It's only 60 minutes long. It's, for a CD, you could have filled it up with a bit more, but at that point of their career, look, if they released this best of probably 2 or 3 years after, when they released another album or two, they might have filled that out. But at this stage, that's what it is. And to their credit, to the band's credit, or the record label, I should say, they knew that they were onto something with this Greatest Hits, because they did Greatest Hits, then they did Greatest Hits 2, then they did Freddie Mercury in the 90s. So yeah. But this is the one that really captures. If you want to get someone into Queen, you give them the Greatest Hits CD. You don't give them a Night at the Opera. A Night at the Opera is just, it's an ambitious album. I love Queen, but I don't really like their albums. I've got to say it straight up. I love Queen, but I just do not like their albums. You know, I've tried listening to it, tried going back into their stuff like Sheer Heart Attack and Queen 2 and Night of the Opera, Day at the Races, News of the World, etc., etc. I just don't really like the songs that they had outside of their singles off that album. These albums, I should say. Yeah, there was some weird stuff, I guess. So I'm looking over, for example, A Day at the Races, and of course, Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy. We all know that one, Somebody to Love. And then you got all these other ones here that are just, I don't know. You know, you take your breath away a long way, and people will say you're a fool. I agree, I am, but I just don't see the endurance with the rest of it. There's probably one or two tracks that I reckon should have been added, like for example, Sheer Heart Attack, but when you go over the best of, Sheer Heart Attack would sound very out of place, I guess, on that album. So I can understand why they didn't include it on the original mix of this best of. But I mean, you look over the set list here. You open up with Bohemian Rhapsody, one of the greatest tunes ever written in history of rock and roll, followed up by another one, Bites the Dust, fantastic, one of the most infectious and well-known bass intros. You know, Killer Queen, Fat Bottom Girls, Bicycle Race, You're My Best Friend, Don't Stop Me Now, Save Me, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Somebody to Love, Now I'm Here. And then, I mean, like, by the time you get to this point, it's a little bit, yeah. I never really liked Now I'm Here or Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy. Flash is interesting, it's a very short song. Seven Seas of Rye was interesting, that was back on their first album. And of course, you close off the album with regarding Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm sure everyone's got a Bohemian Rhapsody story, you know, Wayne's World type of scenario. What are we going to pick? Bohemian Rhapsody. Good choice. So, Bohemian Rhapsody, my story regarding this song in particular is that I was at a pub, and this pub was a metal pub. A lot of people, I think it was called Agincourt, and I think it's shut down now. But this pub in particular was very well known for being like a heavy metal act. You'd have live performances on the weekends, and you know, all the hardcore bands performing shit like that in front of 50 people in this small little basement room and second floor. Very similar setup. They're very, very small rooms. Anyway, I remember going there because I'm like, I just wanted to go there for ages, and finally convinced all my friends to drag their ass there, and they hated it. I loved it. I'm sitting there. Well, sorry, I wasn't sitting there. I was in the mosh pit with a beer in hand. Beer. I was in the crowd, I should say. You know, they're pumping probably some freaking, you know, they're probably pumping Metallica, Megadeth, Black Flag, you know, you name it. There's just pig squeals and breakdowns. Here we go. And there were just people with like thick biker freaking chains, you know, like this thick and stuff like that, hair down to their ass, the combat jackets and cargo pants everywhere, and black band tees just everywhere. Everyone's just loving it, doing the old windmills and shit like that. And we're just, you know, bumping into each other and shit, just enjoying it. Small crowd, keep in mind, probably about 30 people. And next second, the DJ just decides to mix it up from pig squeals and breakdowns and puts on Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. And instead of everyone being like, what the fuck, no, I've never seen anything like it. Every single person there just linked arms and started like yelling out the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm just a poor boy, nobody loves me. He's just a small boy from a small family. Spare him his life from his monstrosity. It was one of the most magnanimous, interesting moments I've ever had in a pub setting, and in particular in a heavy metal setting. Hell, heavy metalheads know how to have fun, man. They just I just enjoy the moment. That's it. So that's my weird story when it comes to Bohemian Rhapsody. I gotta say, absolutely incredible. Fantastic moment. So yes, I'm sure that little decision of putting Queen as their best of better than their back catalogue will surely piss people off. But I guarantee you, there will be more ahead of this that is just going to annoy the shit out of you. So we go on. And the next one, Stone Temple Pilots, everyone. I'm saying their best of Thank You is what it's called. This one was released in 2003. Their best of was better than their albums. I mean, I love their albums. I 100% love the first two albums. But at the same time, what was it? Number 4 and Songs from the Tiny Vatican House, whatever it's called, is an interesting album, but number 4 was a bit bland, and Shangri-La, don't even get me on that one. Shangri-La-di-da. Yeah, so to the fact that this best of compiled their first 5 albums into one CD of the best tracks is just perfect, really. And Stone Temple Pilots have this weird thing because people view them as a grunge band, but they kind of are, but they're not. Like their first album very much is a grunge derivative. Yeah, 100%. You listen to Core, and I mean, released in '92, of course, and it's just trying to be grunge. It is really wanting to be grunge. But then you move on to Purple, and the band really evolved, and it's interesting to see that transition because it's such a giant leap almost. I wouldn't. It's almost to the levels of, I guess, Pantera. From the 80s to their 90s material. It's quite a leap, let me say that. So, yeah, the fact that you got these songs that are just absolutely incredible being put into one album, 17 tracks, and it's 15 tracks, and there's no bad track. They, like some of the best ofs I've mentioned, I didn't like some of the tracks or sections. Like The Police, for example, didn't like the Tea in the Sahara one. Queen's one, I thought there was a couple of tracks that just got a bit slow paced, but I didn't really enjoy those songs. If I listen to Stone Temple Pilots, I can listen to this entire album from start to finish quite easily, and there's just nothing wrong with it. And in particular, Doz and me would go on road trips, and we would play this on constant repeat almost. You go for a long road trip, and Stone Temple Pilots has that great effect of being just highway music, I guess I'd call it. Highway rock. Because it's the stuff that you can just drive, sit back, chill, listen to, and it gets you in the mood for driving. It keeps you attentive, and you really enjoy it. Plus, you can still sing along to it. You hear, for example, Plush or Lady Picture Show. Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart is fantastic, and I remember we got the first album, Core. Doz got the first album. And then we got this album. And that was my introduction to Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. Probably my favourite Stone Temple Pilots song ever. And it's just incredible. Interstate Love Song, All in the Suit That You Wear. Plush and a Plush acoustic. Ooh, that's a great version as well. Just all incredible songs to hear from a really good band, a really fantastic band, and rock and peace Scott Wayland for that, because it's just a really good effort there. Of course, Purple, great album. Core, I love Core, but I'll admit any day of the week that the best of is really where it's at. And look, it's all controversial at the end of the day because, best ofs in general, you're getting the best of them. You're cutting the crap off. You're getting the songs that they're more known for. So of course, it might seem like a big disadvantage to say that these best ofs are better than the rest of the albums, because of course it's the music love and adore, and it's going to give you that nostalgia boner or whatever. But at the end of the day, some of these bands, they don't really. Some of the albums let them down. There might only be 1 or 2 tracks that you wanted to hear from it. So, good reasons for that. So, yeah, Stone Temple Pilots, especially with Shangri-La-di-da-da. Who cares about that one? Great effort on that one. Ooh. This next one probably get me crucified in Australia, but let's do it anyway. The next one I have on my list is Cold Chisel. And probably some angry little people there regarding that one. So for my American fans in particular who aren't very well aware of this band, Cold Chisel, they're very much a massive, iconic band in Australia. So Jimmy Barnes, lead singer of the group, and I guess the way I could explain it is he's like the Australian Bruce Springsteen. Talking about being, talking about like that blue collar worker type of thing, pub rock, and where it's at for me. And I'm talking about the best of Cold Chisel, All For You, the one that was released in 2011, not too long ago really. And I swear, when you're going over the catalogue of albums from Cold Chisel, the one in particular that comes and stands out for me is Khe-Sanh. And, that song is so well known in the pub scene, in particular the live pub scene. What I'm talking about here is live karaoke versions, and I swear it's like this weird Australian tradition that if you walked into a pub tonight and they had karaoke on, in the corner, you're probably going to see some half-drunk just belting out Khe-Sanh in such a bad, off-key version of Khe-Sanh. It's like an Australian ritual. You are going to hear it. I don't know why. It's like programmed in our brains. Alright, I've had 6 beers deep. You know what I should do? I should sing Cold Chisel Khe-Sanh. I can do it, Jimmy Barnes. Just because Jimmy Barnes would drink 2 bottles of freaking, wine and a bottle of vodka before walking on stage and then belt out his tunes in his way, doesn't mean that you can. He had a style, he had a way, and look, he's paid for it. And there's a reason why they wrote songs like Cheap Wine. Cheap wine and groove. And look, at the end of the day, I've actually seen him live. He's not that good. I'm sorry to say. But that's mostly because age has caught up to them. We're talking about a band that has been around for, 4, nearly 5 decades. And the way that he punished his voice in particular is, of course, going to take its toll. So his voice ain't going to catch up there. And, the guy, I think he's had heart surgery and bloody liver surgery and all these surgeries. So, yeah, it's amazing he's really walking when you think about it. But at the end of the day here, Cold Chisel was this interesting band. They had a whole bunch of albums out, East, Cold Chisel, self-titled, Circus Animals, 20th Century, Breakfast at Sweethearts, all these other ones in particular. And there's just a lot of crap on these albums, in my mind. And I can never get into their albums. Outside of the songs that everyone knows, like Flame Trees, or, of course, When the War Was Over, or these other ones, Bow River, where are we, Breakfast of Sweethearts, You Got Nothing I Want. This is a long bloody fucking list, isn't it, of songs of theirs. This looks like a 2-disc collection, sorry, I'm just checking over it. 20 tracks. Nope, that's just under. So yeah, look, there is a bunch of songs, of course, on there that people will know and recognise being Australian, because, it's just imbibed in our knowledge of Australian music. So, Forever Now, Saturday Night, I love Saturday Night. It's got that weird vocal at the beginning, and I remember just that weird vocal line. I would sing it, I sang it once in a car park, and there was some people laughing like 50 metres away, but yeah, I don't know, it's a weird little earworm. I couldn't recall it now, it's been a couple of years since I played it, but go back and listen to Saturday Night. That little intro vocal is one kicker. But yeah, look guys, if you don't know who Cold Chisel are, particularly I'm talking to you American fans, or really any person who hasn't heard of Cold Chisel, if you love Bruce Springsteen, if you love that style of classic rock, go and check out Cold Chisel. Go check out the best of Cold Chisel, All For You. It just might be your new favourite band. Fantastic little segue. That's how you do this promotion, people. Oh man, I can imagine this next one is also going to get me crucified. But it wouldn't be controversial, of course, if it wasn't otherwise. Oh, and by the way, before I do go into this next one, if I have, if I don't mention a band that you figure or think is worthy of this list, where you think their best of, should have been on this list, comment below. I'd love to see what you guys have to say. If you think X band or X musician should have been on this list because their best of is better than all of their other music. Okay, that being said, Bon Jovi is next. I don't like Bon Jovi that much, but I like his tracks. Living on a Prayer, Keep the Faith, and look, this is the Crossroad best of, which I think was released way back in the day, '94. So it had all the songs that I want here, and I got this from a library. Oh, excuse me, sneezing there. Bed of Roses, Blaze of Glory, all these great tracks, but I can never get into Bon Jovi. I can never get into it. I just don't like the style, but I know he writes these kick-ass tracks. Hell, if I'm 3 beers deep and I'm hearing, Living on a Prayer, I'm going to be screaming those lyrics. So, yeah, it's some great tracks there and fantastic way to hear this music, and that's how I did. I just would never have gone out and bought a Bon Jovi CD to save me. I just don't really like his style. And yeah, look, he released one of the most iconic 80s, what would you call him? It's not hair metal, but let's call it hair metal. Slippery When Wet. So, he's done some iconic works, but to me, the other stuff, who cares? I just don't really like Bon Jovi. I don't really like his style. Controversial, I know. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who would agree with this. Because, at the end of the day, if you're going, if you're a casual listener like I am and going, oh yeah, I know Living on a Prayer, I know Keep the Faith, you know what? You have a point. Probably Bon Jovi's your favourite musician, and I've just shat on him for the last couple of minutes, but I'm just saying, Wanted Dead or Alive, Keep the Faith, Living on a Prayer, Bed of Roses, I'm done. There's 4 tracks from Bon Jovi, I'm sweet. I think even when I borrowed this CD back in the day, I didn't even copy all of it. I just copied like 5 tracks and said, yep, that's all I need. I don't care about Prayer 94. I don't care about Runaway. So yeah, just an interesting little one there when it comes to it. I just didn't like Bon Jovi, so that's why it was a bit easy to add them to the list. Again, this is my opinion. If you don't like it, too bad. This is my opinion at the end of the day. Make a list yourself. Comment below. Throw a like, throw a dislike, throw things at me. It'll be fun. Once again, as I said, if there's a band on this list that you think should have been on here, tell me. I'd love to hear it. Oh, this next one. I love this next band, and I've got it coming up. That being said, I still 100% agree that their best of should be on here. And I'm talking about Guns N' Roses with their greatest hits. Now, I know this one's actually different because I'm sure there is one additional track here that I just can't picture because I remember it being 14 tracks. And considering that this says 2020... Okay, so Guns N' Roses' first album absolutely came at a right time, I guess. It was like came at a wrong time but a right time in the end because it was the death rattle of hair metal, and here comes... There's a lot of shit. That's 28 tracks of music, and it's just some of the shit there you don't want to hear. You really don't want to, you don't care about, for example, if I'm going back to, I know Use Your Illusion 2 in particular here I'm talking about, but there were songs like 14 Years, Get in the Ring. Like, who cares about Get in the Ring is one of the most terrible pieces of music they've ever written, and I haven't even got to the spaghetti incident yet. So yeah, there's just incredible tracks that they did on these albums, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, but it's filled up with a lot of crap. It's like the Load Reload of Metallica, but when it comes to Guns N' Roses almost, you could have combined it into one album and had this fucking strong album. But you didn't. And I know that they had this reissue just recently of Use Your Illusion. Uh, I mean, yeah, that's all we need. Another couple of a couple of versions of the tracks that filled it up before. Hell, how many CDs was it? Four CDs. Four? Four CDs. Jesus, that's a lot of tracks. That can't be right. That's got to be more than that. Anyway, I'm sure it's got some live tracks, which is cool. Well, that's fine. That's fine. But damn, yeah, Use Your Illusion had a lot of filler that just needed. And that's where the best of comes into play. Appetite for Destruction, you could have pretty much added the entire album on there, and then a couple of tracks from Use Your Illusion 1 or 2, and you would have had a very good best of. Alas, we instead ended up with the greatest hits, 14 tracks. In this case, it was 15 because it's recently added Shadow of Your Love on there. But you had, Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Patience, Paradise City, Knocking on Heaven's Door, Civil War, You Could Be Mine was always a track I was like, meh. I'm pretty sure that was the one. Was that the one for Terminator 2? You Could Be Mine, yeah. And I'm sure it was. Anyway, I digress. And of course the other ones, November Rain. You have to have November Rain on there. Live and Let Die. I always loved that cover. And Sympathy for the Devil. Interesting little version. Side note, Motorhead actually did a cover as well for Sympathy for the Devil. It was like one of their last songs they really wrote before he passed away. That was on the Bad Magic album. Check it out. That's an interesting version. Course, hearing Lemmy do Sympathy for the Devil. So, look, again, I love Guns N' Roses. I love Appetite for Destruction. I think it's one of I didn't need Use Your Illusion 1 or 2. I'm pretty sure I borrowed them from friends and went, yeah, I've got the songs I really wanted already. All I want is Appetite for Destruction. And I'm glad that I got that as well, man. So, Guns N' Roses, people. It makes the list. And I love the band. So you can see I'm not playing favourites here or anything like that. I'm choosing my bands regardless of if I love them or hate them. So, Bon Jovi, of course, as mentioned before. And while I didn't like them, I love Guns N' Roses. But they made the list still. Same with Stone Temple Pilots. Same with Queen. And same with the next track. Next album. The next one we got, Live. Yes, the band Live. Or Live, depending on how you want to say it, but it's definitely Live. And we're talking about the band. I mean, just what a tongue twister. We're on Live Listen to Race, talking about live, going live streaming. How about that, eh? Everyone, let's do it. Look, they had a great album with Throwing Copper, but at the same time, they just had a lot of stuff there that was just a bit, yeah. I mean, there was a time in my life where I absolutely I adored the band, and I couldn't get enough of them. Ed Kowalski, very interesting and unique singer. And I think they're a band that kind of flew under for a lot. But, when you go on over it, they've got a lot of albums out there that were just so average. I think when I got into them, about the time I got into them, they released Birds of Prey, which isn't a terrible album. It's not a great album either, but still, there's a couple of tracks, of course, Heaven, but then the rest of it's kind of meh. And this is why I'm glad I got instead, because it's just so much better. Throwing Copper I liked. I went back and really enjoyed that album, but still, going back as a decent fan anyway, and playing Secret Samadhi, I wasn't particularly interested. It didn't take me in either, or The Distance to Here. What instead got me, and I feel the same, I guess you could say the same about Dave Matthews Band here as well, is their live performance. In particular, the live DVD I bought, which is Live at the Paradiso, Amsterdam. Really good performances live. And, when their singles, when they hit, they really hit. They get those emotion strings. They pull those emotions and they pull them hard. They just have these incredible kind of ballady alt rock kind of thing, selling the drama, lightning crashes, All Over You, Turn My Head, Dolphins Cry, but at the same time they can sound very similar. And stuff, and that's why this best of album was one that I really enjoyed, because again, you're just cutting the crap out of this, and you're just getting what you really wanted. They stood up for love, Dance With You, Overcome. Really good album at the end of the day. It was pretty sure, only one CD, 19 tracks. That's quite a fair bit there. So yeah, just this really solid album. Weird cover. You look at it and I don't know, it's like some Sinead O'Connor looking person with a bunch of cats behind a curtain. if That's the only way I can describe it, people. You got to look at it. It's a weird looking cover. So it's Best of Live, everyone. Yeah, if you don't know who they are, they were around during the 90s. They kind of got overshadowed a bit by grunge and a few other musical styles, I guess. They still pulled a fair bit, especially towards the late 90s and early 2000s. The Dolphins Cry and other tracks like that around that time. Which, from memory, the Dolphins Cry, the video clip for that was like a whole bunch of people in a walkway or an alleyway, and then water just pouring out when it was just, got to that certain point of the song, the crescendo, I guess you could say. And I remember it was just weird because it was slow motion and it's just it was a really weird video clip. It was cool though. I enjoyed it a lot. But again, this is just another band that I thought, hey, I think their best of is still not, it's still much better than the rest of their material. Sorry to say, guys. At the end of the day, that's just how I feel. So, yeah, absolutely incredible stuff there. We'll go on to the next one here with REM, everyone. I'm going to piss off a lot of people. Now, I'm going to get a bit more specific with this one here because I know there are two best ofs that they have. I'm talking about the album In Time, Best of REM 1988 to 2003. This is when they started really writing some incredible albums and some really well-known songs. Now, of course, REM has been around since like 1982 or something. They have a whole, 7 albums before this. A lot of albums out before this. So we're missing a whole section of REM. And I didn't include that one because at the end of the day, it's not as strong. It's interesting. It was one that I went back to, but it was just not the same, I guess, as the other one. I think it was Dead Letter Circus or something like that. Dead Letter Office, sorry. I could be wrong there. But anyway, they had another version of their best ofs before they broke through with their album, and it just wasn't as good. It was a different style to REM, different tempo, different writing. Yeah, it's an interesting one if you're really starting to get into REM, and I swear everyone around about the age of 17 does. But if you're starting to get into REM, this best of is probably the best way to do it, and probably a lot of people pissed off just by me saying that because, hey, there's a lot of albums out there. Monster, really good. Green, really good. Out of Time, really good, and Automatic for the People, depending who you ask. But if you're not really enjoying Michael Stipe's vocal deliveries, I should say, and it can get a bit on the nose, or on the ear I should say, then it's kind of a great way to get around it, because obviously Monster had some really cool tracks. Crush It Eyeliner, What's the Frequency Kenneth, but then there's just some weird shit in there, and I found it interesting listening to these weird birds just talking, I found it interesting going back and listening to a lot of their music, but it was just such a bit of a push, I kind of got it over REM years and years and years and years ago, so for me, probably the best of is where I'd listen to them from now on out. I don't think I could go back into their albums. Out of Time, meh, you know. It's just, I mean, shit, how many times can you play Losing My Religion? Hey, Losing My Religion's about to hit 1 billion plays, by the way, people. 977 million plays. I mean, shit, that's one of those songs I think you could just do without. I don't know. And then it's ironic, Losing My Religion, Shiny Happy People, also on the same album. So, yeah, I'm talking about that section when they really shot up to fame and they wrote a lot of incredible music there. So, you know, Was a Frequency Kenneth, Losing My Religion, Ebo, The Letter, Orange Crush, Imitation of Life, Day Sleeper, Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight, all these really beautiful songs from the band, but at the same time, it's probably better off listening to the best of rather than going through all of their albums. If you don't know much about REM, you're probably going to be starting here and finishing it as well. You might deep dive and you might find yourself going, I think I'll go back to the best of, just like I did. Just saying, people. You know, sometimes the best of stayed there for a purpose. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about might be cheating a little bit because, and I digress, but it's a little bit of a compilation album, and what I mean by that is like it's a few albums actually put together. And I'm talking about the Misfits with their album Collection. It's a best of, and it's 40 minutes long. But we're also talking about a band that was releasing albums that were like 12 minutes long as well. Yeah, these guys wrote short music, and it's a little bit of cheating because this is technically like 2 albums in one, and then a couple of other tracks. So, you know, there's 20 tracks in total. Yes, that's right, 20 freaking tracks, and it's 40 minutes long. Because, yeah, most of these can go for like a minute and something. And it's a mixture of, I think, 2 or 3 albums. It's something like, what is it, I think it's Wolf's Blood. Because Misfits, they had really odd releases. And what I mean by that is, true to the hardcore kind of punk scene, or in their case, horrorcore punk, they'd probably release a couple of singles, a couple of EPs, that'd be, 4 tracks, but not really albums. So when you go over their catalogue, it's a bit weird. Walk Among Us is probably their first one that they really release, and that's I think that's also like 13 tracks. There we go. Fucking 24 minutes long. Very short. So I'm pretty sure Collection actually contains Earth AD and Die Die My Darling, and a few other ones like that. And it's just some short stuff, Wolf's Blood and all that. And it's I don't know how to describe it, people, because Spotify doesn't have all of their singles and all of their EPs and releases post to pre whatever, but Collection, it's a collection of all of those singles, all those EPs in one. So it doesn't need to have those ones. It's all here for you to see and listen to. And it was just this real perfect album. Because they're an interesting band. You go far back enough, and it's like listening to the Beach Boys going into a bit more punk territory. Ramones-ish kind of era style music. And then, like Hollywood Babylon, one of my favourite tracks, is very much unlike their newer stuff or later stuff, later 80s stuff, where they went real freaking hardcore. But then you go to Bullet, absolutely brutal track. Teenagers from Mars is really cool as well. Night of the Living Dead, Where Eagles Dare, Vampira, Vampira. So really cool stuff there. And most of these tracks, I'm saying, are barely 2 minutes long. If you love your punk, if you really enjoy punk, fucking get into this album. Get into the Misfits. Go listen to Collection, because that's where it's at. That's where I started when I came and listened to them. And I did eventually listen to a few of their other albums. And they did actually expand on this with doing Collection 2, a lot of other stuff. It's like 20 tracks again, 35 minutes. Again, how is this collection? Collection 1 and 2 could fit on one CD. But, Return of the Fly and stuff like that was on that one. So they did their last album release is 2011. That's how long been. They've done EPs and singles since then. For example, Friday the 13th, I think, was one of their last ones. That was 2016. It's been a while, I believe, since some of their latest stuff. I could be wrong with that one. But, Friday the 13th fits. Love the band, but I've got to say that they really needed this CD in the mix to kind of glue all of it together, put everything into one little thing that people could listen to, much more easier to access. And that was probably the main point, I guess, of this collection CD. So, look, I might be cheating, like I said there, but that's just my opinion, because hey, that's how I got into the Misfits. That's kind of where I'm coming from here, and I reckon I'm onto something there. I don't think I'd have too many people disagreeing with that point there. Collection's probably one of the best albums that they've released, and it's a best of compilation CD. So we have the last band on this mix here. To really drive it home, we need a big one, don't we? We need something to prove the point and push this over the edge. We're going to close it off with we're going to close this off with the biggest top-selling greatest hits album ever sold, ever made, and that is the Eagles, their greatest hits, 1971 through to 1975. That's only 4 years, and it's an album made of greatest hits. It's a very short one, actually, when you think about it. 43 minutes of 10 tracks. But keep in mind also, this is the days of vinyl, so you had to fit everything in 45-ish minutes or under. So otherwise it would run over onto a second EP, cost more materials, and then it would rack up. Keep it all into one LP, and you have just the perfect way to sell an album. This album is the definitive idea that kind of came to mind. This album, I should say, is the reason I wrote this list, because again, I don't really like the Eagles too much, but if I went back and listened to their best of, it would be this one in particular. I know they had a couple of best ofs post this one, but this is the most well known. It has gone 38 times platinum. To give you perspective, Metallica's Black Album is the number one metal album ever sold, and I think that one went 25 times platinum. This has gone 38 times platinum. It is, and I'm talking about America only here. This is, when I'm saying platinum and these numbers, it's America. And to go platinum means to sell 1 million units. This album in America alone has sold 38 million records. 38 million, just one album. Let that sink in. Obviously, they were onto something here, and record labels realised what they had to do. Hey, best ofs can sell. We can make money, especially when the band's going through tumultuous periods and not writing music, people. So yes, you had the Eagles at their peak when they were releasing this album. They just came. I mean, when you look at it as well, actually, just an interesting thought here. When you look at this album, this is before Hotel California. I didn't even notice that on the original time I was looking through this. Hang on. Yeah. So, Hotel California isn't even on this. And it went 38 times platinum. Imagine if they waited a year. Imagine if they just waited a year or two and then said, no, okay, let's do it. So, their greatest hit, 10 tracks, doesn't even contain their most... So, we're talking about a band that I don't know enough of. But, the first couple of albums I did, which is one of these nights. Whole bunch of tracks there that are interesting. Band that's pretty cool, but I just don't really care too much. I know the songs. I know a few of them anyway. Hotel California, Take It Easy, of course. Life in the Fast Lane. I swear that song. I'm pretty sure that one was used on WSFM as a bloody showrunner. For me, the track that I actually recently came across was Journey of the Sorcerer. and a fantastic guitar play on that one. Really cool track, and again, it's kind of like that's not a bad band. And this is actually a band that I have not really played outside of 4 tracks, even their best of that I'm talking about. But I just wanted to highlight that one as the main point, and I feel like I really should go and listen to the Eagles a bit, because, as I said, this one was the one that proved the point that, you have a best of and it outsold like every other record that they ever made, pretty much. And I know that they also did another best of back in 2003. It's like that white one with Eagles written on it there, and that's 33 freaking tracks. That's what, 3 albums? No, 2 CDs, sorry. So of course that one did well. Hey, why not have lightning strike twice, people? That's all. But it's just proving the point at this stage that there's a lot of best ofs out there, and deservedly so, also deserve the praise that they're better than a lot of their catalogues. Over it on today's episode. I hope that you have enjoyed this one, because I think it's an interesting list. I think there's some interesting, bands, and people, comment below. Tell me what you think in regards to this list. Do you agree with it? Do you think I'm wrong? Like it, dislike it. Do you think? Write up what you believe I should have. If I'm wrong because this band released a really good album, tell me. Maybe I should listen to the Eagles and change my mind. Or maybe there's some bands that I didn't talk about, because there's only 10, of course, on this list, and I didn't have time to talk about them all. People, comment below. Share this video. I thank you all for tuning in, of course, to this episode of Live Listen Erased, taking your time out and watching me. Thank you very much. Again, we have just hit over 200 subscribers. I thank all the people who have joined the Chili Con Carnage crew. That is just amazing to hear. Love you all. Thank you so much for that. We also have started doing our YouTube shorts. Yes, everyone, we're starting on a new little area. So we're starting with some YouTube shorts that I just did of old videos, but now we have an episode out, and it's a new segment that I'm trying out, and I've got a lot of episodes coming up, lined up for it. I've got a lot of stuff written out for that. Basically, it's going to be songs with weird titles. The first one that I've done is Metallica's Lux Aeterna. If you haven't seen it, I've got a playlist below there, and it's YouTube shorts. Go check out that little section there. So it's going to contain all the short videos that I create, and there's going to be a few funny ones in the mix, but the main idea with YouTube shorts there is just going to be this segment called Songs with Weird Titles, and I go into depth about certain details regarding songs with weird titles, or albums as well. Keep an eye out for that, because I'm going to try and release one a week in regards to it. It's fun little ones to record. So again, thank you very much for joining me live streaming. If you're watching this post, thank you very much again. Sorry for the beginning. Hey, welcome to a Live Listen Erased, people. It's what we do. Ghost Minus, if you're watching, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Andy, cheers to that too. And everyone, chicken kicker, whatever you're going to do, kick those chickens. Do your thing. Do your thing. As always, people, you have a great day. And stay spicy.